All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the NBA Returns on Nuts and Bolts Sports. I'm Jordan. I'm going to be filling in for Raj as the host tonight. Joining us, as always, is Henry out there from California. Raj is currently hiding due to the fact that AD had another big game, so he doesn't want to deal with our jokes. Obviously, only a few topics tonight on the show. First one, obviously, Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Lakers and the Heat. Definitely went in the Lakers' direction pretty much from the first quarter on. Lakers won 116-98. Anthony Davis game high 34 points, along with 9 rebounds, 5 assists. LeBron James doing the usual 25 points, 13 rebounds, 1 assist shy of a triple double. And the Lakers pretty much cruised for most of the second and third quarters. I think they were on a 75-30 run at one point. Also helped out by the fact that Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo went down with some injuries, which definitely hampered Miami. But Henry, we'll start with you. Just kind of want to give us your general thoughts on what the Lakers did well, what the Heat maybe didn't do well, they'll need to improve on. Just kind of general game one reaction.
I got a little worried when the Heat went out to a very good start because I feel like when teams go to a very good start and they're up, 15, 20 points and they become complacent in that, I feel like that's what happened because they know what the Lakers are capable of, but they're they're on such a roll in the first quarter where they had control of the game essentially, but before we knew it, everybody saw that the Lakers completely took over. They went on a 34-70 run, just putting it like into perspective because that run just pretty much lasted the whole game. Anthony Davis was playing like he is exposing the small ball. People like Jay Crowder and him, it becomes futile. He's just too big, too strong, too fast, even for the smaller players. And it was a LeBron AD game. LeBron had 25 points and Anthony Davis had 34 points. Just too dominant, too much of a dominant duo for Miami. I know Miami is dealing with some injury issues. Goran Dragic is out. Bam Adebayo is out. So it's unfortunate, but the Heat are still a very capable team. They just need players like Kelly Olynyk and Kendrick Nunn to really, really get it going. So I'm expecting those players to, play those heavy minutes, but at the same time, I'm also expecting them to hopefully step it up. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts as a Laker fan, especially, seeing these injuries? Because either way, it's unfortunate. You want to see a competitive series. So, just take me through your thought process on that.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Obviously, for the beginning of the series, you want a full team, no matter who you're playing. That's the only way I want to win series. I've wanted everybody to be healthy. You don't want to see anybody go down, especially because you know how hard these guys have worked to get to this point, to make it to the finals. And obviously, Bam and Dragic are 2 of their 3 best players and have been such key pieces for them throughout the entire playoffs. So Dragic, unfortunately, looks like is probably going to miss the whole series. It seems like the Heat game plan with Bam is he's going to sit tonight in the hopes that he can be 100% or close to it for Game 3 and beyond. They're kind of playing a little bit of a long game with that. That way he doesn't injure himself any more tonight. So it does stink. But like you said, Miami's definitely capable. They're scrappy. I mean, this isn't a team that is going to be, bothered or come out, panicked, just because they're missing 2 of their guys. They have, so we've talked about it so much. They have such a good coach in Spoelstra. We know Jimmy Butler's not going to fear anybody. He's not going to sit out there and make excuses. He knows that they have to play better. I think even with the injuries, the Lakers were already making that run before those guys went down in Game 1. So I think it would have been obviously a closer game, a much different score result. But I still think LA was playing in such a rhythm, especially with LeBron and AD speed in such sync, and the 3-point shooting. I mean, they missed 13 straight, I think, at some point in the second half, but by then the game was kind of out of hand. But LA got hot at some point in the middle of the first quarter, carrying them through basically to halftime. Everybody was hitting shots. Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, Danny Green woke up. Rondo hit his first 3, Caruso. So, I mean, they found their rhythm in the middle of that game, and that's kind of what propelled them. But the one thing that was concerning was that in that fourth quarter, like you talked about, Kendrick Nunn came in, gave Miami good minutes. Don't know if he's going to necessarily replicate, 18 points and 8 of 11 shooting in 20 minutes, but it was concerning that LA really took their foot off the gas and really gave some of those guys confidence, right? It's quote unquote garbage time, but at the ssame time, it's really not, because
No, this one is not.
Spoelstra's looking to see who he can play moving
Mhm.
forward. So you're giving a guy like Nunn confidence. You're giving, Olynyk, if he comes off the bench, giving him some confidence. I expect those 2 will probably take the majority of the minutes. Maybe we'll see a little bit Myers Leonard, but probably not. So it's going to be interesting to see if LA can contain those guys, because Dragic is Joggers is quick and he's crafty. Nunn's probably just he's kind of like a younger version of that. He's a little bit faster, a little bit better getting into the lane. Olynyk, while he doesn't do anywhere near as much as Adebayo does on the defensive or offensive end, really, he's still a capable defender and he's a good spot up shooter. Something that Adebayo doesn't really do. I mean, he can really stretch the floor, so he's going to have Dwight and JaVale and whoever is at center having to guard him out to that 3-point line, which may open up the lane for guys like Jimmy Butler, Crowder, Nunn, etc., to drive in. Additionally, Hero kind of had a rough game. Duncan Robinson was a non-threat, which is kind of expected, I guess, for these young guys. They're rookies and second-year players trying to make it in the final. So I expect a much better game from them. This is definitely not something that LA can overlook. What do you kind of expect from Miami in terms of adjustment-wise here for Game 2?
Well, I'm pretty sure that fans were able to see that Frank Vogel and the team did they did their film research. They saw the way that the Miami Heat played against the Boston Celtics. The reason why Duncan Robinson was struggling so much and he had 0 points was because every time he came off the screen, 2 guys would always be on him. So they saw what he did in the Celtics series. Every time he came off the screen, he had that little slither of an opening to make that 3, and that's all he needed. So Frank Vogel's plan, per se, for Game 1, it was ran to perfection because every time Hero or Duncan Robinson were coming off those screens, they were given such little opportunity to put the type of shots up that they know they can make. In terms of the adjustments for Eric Spoelstra, I feel like he's probably figured it out, that they figured it out. In terms of their screenplays and everything, and how Bam Adebayo is such a huge role in that. He's the person that sets the screens in the perimeter to set up the shooters, for success. So he's trying to see now with the Kendrick Nunn and with the Kelly Olynyk in the lineup, how is that going to go about? Hopefully they're going to be hopefully as efficient as Bam Adebayo. Obviously not. He's been doing it for the entirety of the playoffs, and just the whole confidence factor. Are they able to execute and all the new adjustments? Did you notice that as well? That every time these players were coming off the screens, I saw KCP is playing good. A props to Contavious Caldwell Pope, because he's gotten so much slander through his tenure as a Laker, but he's really proving his worth. I'm happy to see that guy play the way he is, especially right now. He got off to a hot start. I expect him to get off to a hot start in Game 2. But what are your thoughts in terms of Eric Spoelstra, in terms of what he can do, especially now with this new lineup?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, if anybody can make the adjustments, it is Spoelstra, right? We've seen him do it time and time again, dating back to when LeBron was in Miami. He'd bring out guys like Rashard Lewis out there to play the stretch 5 in those series against Indiana, and other guys like Mike Miller, Battier, guys you wouldn't see for like 3 weeks, then all of a sudden they'd be in there and effective in the rotation. So I'm sure he's got something. I'm sure they went to work. If I'm Miami, to be honest, like if I'm playing it from their side, that there's already going to be – it was already a mismatch with AD no matter who was guarding him, right, because that's just what he creates. And obviously now with Bam Adebayo out, it creates an even bigger mismatch. I mean, AD is really going to have his way. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like 35 to 40 tonight, just based on like just the opportunities he's going to get. I'm sure LeBron's going to look to get him involved early, as he always does. But if I'm Miami, I don't think it hurts to take a shot and just be like, listen, we're going to play AD straight up. Whatever he gets, he gets. If he gets 40 and 20, he gets 40 and 20. But just focus on don't give anybody for the LA wide open 3-pointers. Do your best to kind of deter the LeBron drives and make him more of a jump shooter. Throw Butler and Iggy on them as much as possible to kind of bother him, and just try to take away everything else and like make LA beat you with like contested jumpers. Don't let him get to the line. Like do everything in your power and just kind of let AD, like whatever. AD can't score 116 points like the Lakers did in Game 1. It's just not. Nobody's going to do that. So I feel like I could see a world where they don't really double AD a lot, because AD is he's a willing enough passer and he's smart enough, I think, playing with LeBron to make good passes if he gets doubled. So I really wouldn't go that route. But just like I said, just don't. That's the big thing. The Lakers hit a lot of wide open threes, and they've been while they're not a great 3-point shooting team, when it comes to wide open, like 6 feet or more of space, they've been probably one of the best, if not the best, shooting team in the bubble on those. So if Miami can cut down on those and don't give open looks, and kind of bother LeBron a little bit, and make him work. I think that would be Miami's kind of outlook to try and get into this game to not go down by as many points and try to even the series. But me just saying that, I mean, that's a tall task, right? I mean, you're trying to deal with AD, trying to not let him score 40, and then you're also trying to stop LeBron James. And that's what's been so lethal all postseason is you try to stop one, but then there's always the other. Kind of a pivot to LeBron and AD. They've obviously been playing so well throughout these whole playoffs. They've each had really monster games when the teams needed them to step up. LeBron obviously with the closeout in Denver. AD had a couple earlier in the playoffs. Would you? And I'm not trying to look ahead. This is not me as a Lakers fan, trying to look towards the end of the series. But if the series progresses in this way and the Lakers continue to have a stranglehold on it, if they're both playing about the same, like the numbers that you saw in Game 1, if they're both keeping the same, does AD have to do anything extra to win the Finals MVP if the LA were to win, or does because you got to figure LeBron's probably got, just because of the narrative of him being in his 17th year, carrying this team at age 35, leading the league in assists, etc. He's probably still got to be the favorite in the minds of the writers who are voting that for MVP, as long as he puts up his usual numbers. Is there a world where AD can take it away if he has some monster games, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, if there's any year to have a first time co-finals MVP, I don't know if that's ever happened before. Hopefully that can be this year, because
I don't think so.
Yeah, it amazes me that Anthony Davis is putting up the most point. And Raj, if you're listening to this, Anthony Davis is a superstar. That man is a flat out superstar, especially doing this in his first deep playoff run.
Right.
He's just showing utter dominance, and he's showing such a huge intimidation factor too to his opponent. And that's such a huge cornerstone for who the Lakers are this year. They're just so grit and just in your face the whole season. And Anthony Davis, not only statistically, but he's the cornerstone of that piece in terms of the Lakers and why they're so dominant. I mean, if he came out with if that ankle injury was a lot worse than we thought, and let's say he was out for a game or two, do you think the Lakers, or even game one of the against the Heat, do you think the Lakers would have had this up dominance? No. With someone down low like AD missing, it's not possible, especially going against player. And obviously the game would have played out differently. Bam Adebayo probably wouldn't have gone injured to leave the game, and Goran Dragic as well. So but also you think about if you plug LeBron out, I don't think Anthony Davis can put him over the top as well. So like I said, if there's any time to have it, we've had All-Star MVPs with Shaq and Kobe.
Right.
Back in 2008, 2009, and why not a co-finals MVP? Because I feel like they're both very well deserving. But in the reality and grand scheme of things, I don't think, the league is going to do that. But, in terms of the writing side, in terms of media, LeBron has that edge. But in terms of, of the tangibles, I think Anthony Davis has more of that edge. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough, and again, I'm not trying to look too far ahead. This is just a knock on wood, everything works out down the road type of situation. It's a interesting dynamic because they've both been putting up incredible numbers. I mean, AD, while he has doesn't have the longevity of playoff games like LeBron does, but he's played in a couple series, right? He's been there 2, 3, 4 years now, and has played at least into the second round in a couple of them, and obviously having an extended run here. So he's got enough games under his belt. I mean, he's second all time in playoff scoring, other than Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan's the only guy ahead of him points per game. So that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, he doesn't show any signs of slowing down either. It's not like he's going to, drop down to 22 and 10 a game. I could see him putting up 28 to 34 in every game in this series.
That man's crazy.
So, I think it's interesting you bring up the co-MVPs. I think the league would definitely try to avoid doing that. They want to make it, MVP, most valuable player, not with an S at the end of it. But if the two of them keep putting up if LeBron puts up 25, 12 and 9, and AD's putting up 35, 9 and 5 with 4 blocks, it's an interesting thought. If they were able to do it, I think they'd have to stay exactly at this level. Nobody could have whoever has the first off game that would immediately bolt the other one kind of up. So it would be interesting for sure to see what would happen. But the Lakers obviously have to take care of business, moving forward. We've kind of talked about the adjustments. What are you thinking, results prediction for tonight for game 2?
I think the way that game 1 played out, I can see another Lakers domination. I mean, obviously with Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo out, it's a huge hit for the Miami Heat, and players like Nunn and Olynyk, they haven't been able to expose themselves too much to playoff basketball throughout this throughout this run. They had, their good minutes in game one. I just want to see if that's going to be able to translate into game two in terms of that confidence factor you bring up, because it's a huge thing. We saw Tyler Hero make the jump because he's been able to have those opportunities to do so. So is none going to be able to do that? Because think about it like this: he was also in conversation for Rookie of the Year before the season, had the pause and everything because of a COVID. He was in that conversation because he was the golden gem that the Miami Heat picked up this year in the draft. And Olynyk, he's had his playoff tenures, with the Boston Celtics, and he's been able to expose himself too, but not this high of a level. So can I expect, a performance where both of them have a breakthrough this game? Maybe, but can I expect the Lakers to have more of a domination again, like game one? I can expect that a lot more. But, in terms of aside from predictions as well, I kind of wanted to just revert back to that, finals MVP talk, because I'm curious to hear your opinion. In the world, if LeBron does not win NBA Finals MVP, do you think that's going to hurt his legacy? And the media is going to take anything that's going to hurt him and be like, oh, Michael Jordan 6 times, Finals MVP. LeBron 3 times, and then once he couldn't lead a team. He wasn't the flat out leader. And what do you think on that narrative?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it is. It's narrative. I think LeBron and AD the parallel to it is kind of like Magic and Kareem, also on the Lakers, obviously in that mid '80s. And there was a point where Kareem was still he still had his fastball. He was still playing at such an elite level, but Magic was obviously rising. As the younger, more athletic guy taking over the league, and they from like '84 to like '86 range, they kind of had that not power struggle, but just like who was getting more of the credit, whose team was it. And so that's kind of the interesting dynamic that it reminds me of. But in terms of would it hurt his legacy? And believe me, everyone who knows me knows I'm not the biggest LeBron fan. I wasn't thrilled to have him come to LA at the beginning. But at the same time, we've seen it with Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry doesn't have a Finals MVP, and he played well enough in 15, 17, and 18. Durant was obviously phenomenal those last 2 years. But Curry, you look at his stats and his numbers. I mean, he was just as effective and did almost just as much on offense in those years. And I think the 15 MVP when it went to Iggy was the prime example of a narrative, right? It was they moved Iggy into the lineup. They went small. He was guarding LeBron all series, and LeBron's shooting percentages weren't good, even though LeBron didn't really have any help in that series because everybody was hurt. And then Iggy also shot the lights out from three, which he never does. So I don't think, but at the end of the day, Curry was the engine that moved that team. I think it's a crime that Curry didn't get that Finals MVP. But I don't hold that against Curry. It's not his fault. So I wouldn't hold this against LeBron, I guess is my point. He's already proven, with 3 finals, 3 finals MVPs. He's dominated, 9 finals in 10 years. I don't think, in terms of his legacy, I don't think there's really not much that he could do to jump to past MJ. I think the MJ debate's silly, and I don't ever want to have it with anybody. But I will say, if he's able to be, even if he doesn't win Finals MVP, but he's clearly the 1B option here in the finals and puts up 95% good numbers as he's always done, I think that it could bump him up firmly in that number 2 spot or 3 spot, wherever you want to rank him, and I think that secures his legacy in that way. But I wouldn't fault him. I mean, if AD has if AD has these mismatches and he has 35, 10, and 5 all series, it's like Shaq and Kobe in 01, 02. You could have Kobe was putting up incredible numbers. Shaq was the dominant center, obviously feasting and putting up ridiculous stats. But I don't think that hurt Kobe's legacy in any way. Just it didn't hurt Shaq's legacy that D Wade won the 06 Finals MVP. He went off. It just happens. So these things happen, and that's, I guess, it's a good problem to have, right? And being teamed up with another superstar that could potentially steal a Finals MVP, because it means that you won a title. So I think if you ask. No, I don't think so. I don't think LeBron cares about. He stopped caring as soon as he got that ring in Cleveland. I think he stopped caring officially. So I don't think he's bothered by it. I don't think AD is really worried about it either. I'm sure there's a part of him that hey, it'd be so cool for me to lead this team, get the Finals MVP, his first Finals. There's a lot of first with that. But they both openly spoke about how they're not jealous of each other. They don't care who gets the credit, who gets the praise, whether it's LeBron, AD, all the way down to the 12th man. They, like you mentioned, you've talked about this. They have some of the best team chemistry, and I think that's legitimate. So I don't think either player, is worried about it. And we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think it's knock on wood, Lakers play well. It'll be an interesting race kind of moving forward. And like you said, the media always has some sort of narrative, so we'll see what it comes down to. Do you want to give a quick prediction for tonight, win, lose, score, anything like that?
I take I take the Heat in game two. Just because, just because
Just
I
because
can
you're a Celtics hater, got or Celtics
no,
guy, got it.
no, like in the not the hate, but like I can expect a bounce back performance from them. I can expect. I know you don't like to hear that, but I can expect a bounce back performance, especially from Jimmy Butler, because I'm quoting you all the time. He's a dog, and you're
He
right.
is.
You're completely right on that.
And he got
And
hurt a little bit in that game too. In fairness, he had a bad twisted ankle, which was not his fault. It was a
then,
fluke, and so I expect him to be healthy and have a much better impact. He seemed kind of lost the rest of the game, like not sure how much pressure he
yeah,
could put
they're
on
like
that
that like
ankle.
threw him off, but Jimmy Butler's been able to bounce back. He's been thrown on the ground throughout his whole life and his career so much that
Hmm.
I'm not going to be surprised if he does have a bounce back performance and he becomes a catalyst of a game two win for the Miami Heat. Can I see a Lakers domination? Can I see AD scoring 30 plus points again? Yeah. I see LeBron putting up 25, 10, and 10? Yeah. Can I see Caruso? How much did he have? 10 points and he was on plus 12. Can I see that again?
That's what he
Yeah,
does. You will
yeah,
see. You will see that again.
yeah,
That's.
yeah,
I can
yeah.
guarantee
Yep.
you, he will.
And you know what? Can I see KCP putting up good numbers again? Going off to hot start again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see his confidence, really rising throughout these playoffs. And I didn't see this throughout the regular season, but now he's been showing it. Danny Green, I can see him, being choppy and stuff. But like I said, man, not trying to be a hater here, but you
That's
know how,
fair. That's your
yeah,
prediction.
you know how these theories works. But aside from
Mhm.
me, what do you think?
I mean, if I had to pick just based on Bam and Dragic being out, I think that the Lakers, especially this team being led by LeBron and AD, and they're so focused, and that LeBron was frustrated about how poorly they played in the fourth quarter. He's talked openly about how like 2011 still bugs him when they blew that lead in game two, and that really changed the series against Dallas. So I think he will refuse to let them let up if they start to play sloppy or slow to start. I would expect a quick timeout and for him to be giving it to his teammates and holding them accountable, which is what you're supposed to do as the leaders on the team. So I think it'll be much closer. I don't think it'll be. I mean, it was a 35-point game at one point. I don't think it's going to be that. I would see like LA like 112 to like 104. Like I think they're going to need some free throws late, maybe. But I do think just the strength of LeBron and AD is going to be enough to pull it out. Plus, like we talked about, I mean, Tyler Hero and Iggy were combined minus 70. Like especially Iggy too. Like this is his 6 finals in a row. I don't expect that to happen again. Hero looked a little lost deer in the headlights, so I don't think that's going to happen again either. I think they're going to look for some good, more schemes to get him and Robinson some free open
They're
looks
going.
like you talked about. So we'll see. I do think the Lakers are going to win. They're also wearing those Black Mamba jerseys. They have not lost in them all postseason, so they're going to look to keep that going. And we'll find out. And obviously, that'll be something we talk about come Monday. We'll have two games actually to talk about. We'll have game 2 tonight, and then game 3 on Sunday. We'll wrap up. The only other really big news what we heard is quickly Doc Rivers moving from the Clippers. He was obviously
Did you predict that?
I said
You
it was a
did.
possibility. I said it was a possibility. The Ty Lue is the Clippers, which he's meeting with. Ty Lue's meeting with the Clippers and the Pelicans.
Yeah.
That's still up in the air. But yeah, it seemed like within like 48 hours, Doc
That was
was
quick.
done with the Clippers,
Yeah.
flew to Philly almost right away, interviewed, and I don't think they even talked really. I don't even know if they gave D'Antoni a full interview or anything. And so Doc Rivers is going to be coaching for the Sixers, for the upcoming season. We don't know all the contract details yet. What are your thoughts on like his fit with that team based on what we've just seen? There's also some rumors swirling that because he's coming in there, he might be looking to make some changes along with Elton Brand, some potential trades. I heard it was probably a bogus rumor, but it was about possibly trying to trade Simmons to Minnesota for the number 1 pick and going that route. Like there's a lot of things flying around Philly right now. How do you think he fits in coaching wise and with this team? And do you think he would make any changes?
I think he will make a lot of changes. I mean, I recently wrote an article just highlighting how great of a coach he really is. Yeah, those 3-1 defeats, they're harsh on his resume. But if you do look at the grand scheme of things, he's been able to hone players. Tobias Harris, when he was on the Clippers, he honed him to be a 20-point scorer a night, something that he wasn't able to do in Orlando necessarily, and something that, it was kind of he became a focal point on offense for the Clippers, and he's been able to utilize people and players like Tobias Harris to their full potential. Now he's going back. Philly has Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons is still there right now, no trade or anything. But do I think he's going to be able to make the right changes? Yeah, he has 21 years of coaching experience. I think this is the right call. I'm glad that the Sixers weren't hesitant about this, because if they were, they will be absolute fools for it, and especially to give. I prefer having Doc Rivers there than Mike D'Antoni. That's like the best way to put it, because I trust Doc Rivers more in terms of his chemistry with the players, especially when egos collide, because we can see what happens, when Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, when they're
Mhm.
probably going at it with each other, and they're not on the same page on the court and off the court. Doc Rivers can be that middleman for them. He's like, hey, like, I came here to set a new standard for this team, because he's been able to do that with the Clippers, still the best winning percentage in Clipper history. So that's to give him credit for that. Still won a ring with Boston. His tenure with the Magic wasn't as great, but it still led
Mhm.
to the playoffs. But this is a playoff contender caliber coach. So do I like the move? I love the move, absolutely. But I don't know if you feel the same way about it. You're right on the nail too. You had the best feeling like that. The Sixers were gonna sign Doc Rivers, and that happened quick actually after you said that. So what are your thoughts
Very
on
quick.
that?
I'm on a roll. No, I mean it's interesting because like we've kind of spent the last, and once the Clippers lost, the whole talk was like, well, this team was a little overrated. Doc Rivers now has these blemishes on his career, right? Within the last, it's basically from the Magic on, he's had 3-3-1 leads that he's blown. He's blown 3-3-2 leads. Had all these great Clipper squads that are supposed to be favorites, couldn't get it done. This year was, the presumptive title favorite, even ahead of Milwaukee and the Lakers, and they don't even make it to the conference finals. So some marks on his resume that I think need to be talked about, every time you mention him. However, I will say, like, in all fairness to Philly, like, he immediately becomes the best coach they've had, this decade, or, in the last 10 years,
Oh yeah.
between the guys that they had at the beginning of the tank and then Brett Brown. Not that I don't think Brett Brown was terrible. I just don't think
Nah,
he wore
yeah,
out his welcome and kind of ran out of time and space
yeah,
there.
especially because Ben Simmons was hurt in the first round. So
Right, exactly, and it was tough to get a sense of how they would have played, but there was so much hype on them last year, and they didn't. They were a team that many picked, including myself, to go to the finals, and they didn't do it. So it's interesting. We'll see. He's always been known for being a stars coach, so he should kind of help Embiid and Simmons develop. He's obviously a former player who has a lot of respect. He has his championship ring with your Celtics in '08, so he's got that as well. And coaching, a former guy like Tobias Harris. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think it doesn't really matter who their coach is until they make some moves. I do agree with that. They still need to make moves. I've been on the trade Embiid. I've been on trade somebody, either one of them, for 2 years. I was on trade Simmons last year. I flipped over. I'm on trade Embiid this year. I think Simmons is the guy you can build around. Embiid just hasn't shown me that he wants it. So I still think they have to make some moves. And those are the only guys that can trade, right? You can't really trade Tobias Harris, and you can't really trade Al Horford because their contracts are so large. And the only way you could trade those guys is if you added first-round picks to that, but they don't really have any. They have their own this year, but it's not good. And they've traded so many picks for Marco Fultz for Tobias Harris that they don't have a lot of options there. So I think their best move is to make, trade Embiid. I still think you can get a ton of value for him. If you had to, he's one of the top 12, 13 guys in this league. So you can still get a ton of value. You can get picks, you can get cap relief, you can get a serviceable center that can probably, maybe shoot some threes. And then you can kind of just build around Ben Simmons. That's where I would go with it. I don't know if they're going to go that far to that extreme, but it's also Philly. You never know, right? Like they're prone to making very brash decisions over the years. So we'll see what happens. They think they have the 21st pick in the draft, but as we know, this is probably the weakest draft class in at least 6 or 7 years. So there's not going to be a lot of guys available there unless they trade up. But we'll see what happens. He's shown, if anything, Doc Rivers has shown that he can bring teams from the basement, from the bottom, up to relevancy. He's done that with the Celtics. He's done it with the Clippers. And the good news about the Sixers, they're not in the bottom, right? They were still, for all their issues, they were a 4 seed. So they can still, a 6 seed maybe, but so they're still in the playoffs. They're still going to be a relevant team. You still have 2 guys to build around. So it'll be interesting. Where do you see them finishing? Let's just say they don't do anything major because we don't know what they're going to do. If they keep most of this core together and add maybe a free agent or a draft pick here, what do you see them doing next year? Given the Giannis situation, the Kyrie and KD will be healthy. Whatever the Heat do, what does that East look like next year with Doc Rivers as coach?
No, it's kind of scary to think that Kevin Durant is still in the league, because at one point I kind of completely forgot about him. But the other day it came to me, I was like, wait, KD and Kyrie are going to be healthy next season. So that's a scary thought as a Boston Celtic fan, because this was like our best chance to get to the finals this year. And, we blew it. But, coming up, especially now that they have Steve Nash on their side, it's going to be a much tougher East because Kevin Durant is still top three in the league, especially when healthy. If it weren't for his injury, his Achilles injury in the 2019 finals against the Raptors, I'm pretty sure they would have won. They would have won that one too. And then Kyrie off the court, he can be chaotic, but on the court, he is one of the most skillful players in NBA history, in my opinion. So having those two fully healthy,
Former Celtic great.
form. Hey, and his cancer now wears number 11.
Yeah.
So, do I think the East is going to be a problem for the Philadelphia 76ers next year? Yes. Can I see them overcoming some teams like the Raptors in the regular season and, taking their third seed spot? Yeah, I can see that. Or their second seed spot. I can see that, especially now with Doc Rivers, especially if Toronto doesn't figure out how to, maximize Pascal Siakam, then he's going to become pretty futile against a Joel Embiid, a revitalized Joel Embiid not under Brett Brown, but under Doc Rivers' guidance. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But it's just a scary thought, too, that the Nets have Karis LeVert, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and Jared Allen. Such a good squad that it makes you think like they're
Joe Harris off the bench is a shooter.
Joe Harris off the bench. They have probably the best squad on paper. But we've seen it time and time again, where the star players don't mesh in the court. We saw, the 2013 Lakers. We saw what happened there. And that's just a prime example of so much hype for a team that, like, wow, such great players all in the same court at the same time. But it's, who's going to take the last shot? Who's gonna do what now and everything. I think Curry was able to give that up for a few years for Kevin Durant, to be that sole player. But do you think it's gonna be as easy for Kyrie because he left Cleveland to be the man, but like now he's not the man anymore? So how's that gonna go? And how's that gonna work into the Sixers' favor? In order to make themselves contenders in the East.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, if I'm Elton Brand, I would trade Embiid. I think there's a world where you trade Embiid and you build around Simmons and you put Simmons is like right now he's like a B to B plus version of Giannis, right? Not a great outside shooter, good defender, great defender, really both of them. Simmons is a better passer and has all the athletic abilities. Doesn't quite have the height and length, but he's still got all that athletic ability. I think there's a world where you build it around him, where you have him and 4 shooters out there and guys that can defend. And, you have a center that can also shoot threes because, Embiid's like, 32, 33% shooter. That's just not going to get it done. So I think there's a world where you trade Embiid, get great value back for him, get draft picks and capable players you can plug in right away, and you build around Simmons. And I think within, 18 months or a year or two, I think there's a world where they end up in the finals. But I don't think that Philly's going to make that move. They've committed so much to the tank to get Simmons and Embiid that I think it's going to be so hard for them to break it up, which I don't get because it's not like they won anything, right? Shaq and Kobe, that was almost easy to break that up because those guys didn't get along, but they had won, 3 titles in the last couple of years before they got rid of them. These guys have won nothing. They haven't even been to a conference finals. So to me, I don't see why they have to keep them together. But that'll be something that Doc and Elton Brand obviously discuss as they move forward here. I think that'll pretty much do it. There's really nothing else going on. Like I said, Ty Lue is interviewing with the Clippers and Pelicans, so maybe we'll have a new coach for one of them by Monday. I think it's going to be the Clippers. I said this like right after Doc Rivers left. I said Ty Lue is going to be there, so maybe I'll go 2 for 2, and then I'll just have to get the Pelicans one right. We'll be back Monday sometime around this time. Hopefully Raj will be able to join us too. We'll recap game 2 and game 3. So this could be an interesting series, right? It could be 3-0, could be 2-1, could be 2-1 favor of the Lakers or Miami, depending on the health of everybody and who plays. So we'll have a lot to recap, a lot to discuss. Obviously, we have our social medias below. Find us in both sports on any social media platforms. And continue to subscribe, and we will see you guys on Monday.